Hello and welcome. We're going to get back to some of our color art lessons this time. And remember the past? Yes, we did oil pastels and we used black watercolor dye or brown watercolor dye. Well, we've got something new for you this time. First off, one of the new things that we have is we're going to use violet watercolor dye at the end. So that's exciting and very fun. And that will be used for this month's project, which will be trees, and next month's project. So stay tuned for that one. And the other thing that we have that's new this time, we have an extender blender oil pastel. So I have my 16 color set, which if you have 25, the colors will be in there too. But you only really need a 16 color set. Pencil, Sharpie, eraser, and then the colorless blender is extra because it is not included in these sets, so you have to order them separately. And this is going to be really important for these trees today, so I'm very excited. Let's get started. Before we get started, let's look carefully at where we are going. So if you noticed, I have a nice little forest scene here with a little creek or stream kind of running through, and the way I have the land coming in and the trees going back creates depth or space in our picture. So notice that the trees in the front are wider than the trees in the back. These are the skinnies. And the trees in the front are lower down and therefore taller and closer than the ones in the back. They're higher up and farther back. So these are tricks that we have when we're doing landscapes or any picture really, to show space and depth in our picture. The other thing that I'd like for you to notice is that even the creek is wider in the front and then it gets narrower as we go back. And although we have this nice rhythm of river banks or creek banks going back and forth, I tried to make a little bit of variety. So this one has kind of like a dip in it so that it's not exactly the same going both directions. So, all right, let's draw it. I have my 8x10 watercolor paper. This is Canson brand, 140-pound weight. And I've got it taped on with some painter's tape that I got at Menards. It's their store brand, generic brand, and I love how it works. It always releases nicely without ripping into my art, as long as I pull at a right angle away, right? Okay, so I'm all set up and ready to go, and then I want to think about where my middles are. So if I have a mark, this will be my middle this way, that way, and that way. So that'll just close enough count, so it doesn't have to be perfect, but that'll help you know where I am. All right, so I'm going to start what's closest to me, and so a little bit to the left of my middle, I need a little mark for this bank, and then a little bit higher, a diving board there, so we can kind of run down and connect there. The reason I have a diving board here is because that's where the tree is going to go. So I'm going to start with a tree that's here on my diving board, and it's going to go mostly right next to my tape all the way to the top. And then I'm going to start a little bit down and go all the way to the top. And we already have a tree. Ta-da! Okay, so next, on this side, we're going to go the other way. And I'm going to start with a number 7 because that kind of creates that interesting little divot in the bank. And then I'm just going to do an arch that kind of comes up and over. And then I have my other tree. And this is going to go a little bit at an angle. So it creates a long, skinny triangle here. We don't want a broad triangle. We need a skinny triangle because if it's broad, you won't have room for the rest of this forest over here, and then it gets complicated. So, and then I'm going to start over and then just follow my way up. All right, those are the widest trees we have. None of the other trees should be that wide. So as you go back, the next tree should be a little skinnier, little skinnier, little skinnier. Okay, then my next bank sticks out from here. There's a diving board there. And this one has a diving board actually coming from the tree. And it's a little bendy. All right, so a bendy diving board. Okay. And then this one starts here and goes up behind this tree and behind. So I didn't draw on the tree, and it goes behind. And this one goes up, kind of like a scoop of ice cream, and back that way. All right, we got our next hills for where our next trees are going to be. So the next tree is going to start almost instantly past this. There's just a teeny tiny gap, and then it follows all the way up. See that tiny space in between? And then this one has to be narrower, right? So I'm going to start closer in and up to there. 2 trees on this side. All right, this one starts just past it. So I'm going to start this way and follow it up. So it kind of copies this design slightly. There we have it. And then this tree, instead of it just being straight, I want it to Y at the top. So, okay, so I'm going to come back down with a letter V up there. And then I'm going to follow that close to it and down until we get to there. And then the bottom of this one is not as white as that one. All right, we're really doing it. We're making our way up. Let's move it a little closer so you can see. Okay, see how I did that? See how we have that V? Okay, we're ready for the next level of trees. So the next riverbank is going to be a little closer and tighter. So these banks were close up, so they were a bit larger. And now to create the distance in the picture, the rest of them need to be like shorter and closer to the lines that we have here. So watch how that occurs right away on this side. So this time I'm going to have my diving board kind of popping out of the middle of this bank, and I'm going to make it stick out a little longer than this so we get a good meander in there. And then the top line is going to be really close to the last line we had there. So see how I go super close to it? See how that's close? And then it's behind this tree, and it's behind this tree, and then it slopes down and connects to that line. Kind of reminds me of the snow drifts we have here in Chicagoland, but there's no snow in this picture. All right, so next we're going to start right on that line, and we're going to get a really interesting tree that kind of bends and curves and plays a hook up in there. So I'm going to start next to this, follow this up. When I get very near to the top, I have this nice space to play in for my tree. And birch trees and aspen trees, they do a nice kind of curvy thing. They get bent by the wind and things as they grow. So they're very fun to draw. So I added that nice little hook up there. And then I'm going to follow my way back down so that I get this nice kind of racetrack kind of feeling. And there we have that interesting tree. All right, then I'm going to do the one on this side over here. And again, we're going to show some distance on this side. And so we're going to kind of put it in this way. We're going to kind of go out that way and up and behind. So this one's going to get a little higher on this, but we're still not taller than that side. Okay, so more is really going to be going on this little hill. So in this space back here, we've got a teeny bit of space showing back here, right? Because this was our wide tree. And so we only are going to draw half of this tree, not the whole tree. So we're going to start in between and kind of follow our way up. And so we will have a tree that's going off the page on the left. And we want that because we want our forest to look nice and full of trees. The other interesting thing that gets to happen here, and this is the first time that we're using our eraser in this drawing, is there's a tree that kind of peeks out behind this tree. So this tree has twins. It is a twin. So we have this trunk that we can see on this side, but then there's another one that's from the other side, so it creates this nice bend. So it comes out, goes up, and then comes back down. And at some point, it ends up just going behind the trunk that we already have, which means we have to erase the X-ray vision right there. Okay, so let's do it. Erase, 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 erase. I'm noticing that this front trunk seems narrower than the back trunk. I'm not sure if that's possible. So I'm going to erase a little more and try to maybe thicken the base of this a little bit. So I'm going to repair that. See how I repaired that? That does look better. And we're still not done with that particular hill. So out here on the end of that little hill, we have another tree that runs up beside this one. So I'm going to skip a space to start my next tree. Go up, 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 up. Come back down, 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 down. All right. Phew. Now we're done with that particular hill. Our next section of hills, we're going to need a diving board that kind of comes out. And what we never want to happen is we don't want any of these lines to connect across. So if it's straight across, be really cautious that it doesn't connect there. So just move it up or down or something so that it doesn't touch those, because we want to create this little pathway for the water to go. So I'm going to have this one kind of coming out a little higher, and then it's going to be close, going up behind everything. And this is tricky to not accidentally draw on one of our trees. So we really have to think about it when we're drawing this line. Am I drawing on a tree? And if we do, erase, because that's like the most challenging part of that. Okay, and on the other side, we're ready for the next little bend in our little creek. So up here, we're going to have a little diving board there, and it's going to work its way up above these trees over here and in between our negative space. So every time we add another little mound of dirt, we add more complications on not to draw on our trees. So, phew, but we can do this. Okay, so we've got all of our mounds, and now we're kind of ready for the back space. Oh, we drew those, so we should probably go ahead and put our little tree in. So we have another little tree that starts here, and it's going to work its way up. Oh, actually. So our next little tree is going to be bendy, because reaching across is very entertaining, okay? So this one is going to start here, and it's going to bend all the way. If you're not to the middle of your paper yet, you can kind of go past the middle. Okay, so I've got that one going that way. And then on this little hill, we're going to have a letter Y tree. So I've got the straight part of my Y right there that is short. And then I'm going to reach a branch this way. And a branch the other way. All right, we got to go behind everything. How do I know that I've got to go behind everything? Well, this one is farther down than that one. So this one has to go on top of that one, but it's higher up than everybody else, so it goes behind everybody else. So on the side of your paper, the things closest to the bottom are closer to you. The things higher up on the bottom when they start are farther away. So that means this one is closer to us than that one, but not closer to us than all the rest. So that means these branches have to go behind everybody else that we've drawn so far. Behind, behind, behind. But it goes on top of this one. On top. And is it on top of that one? Oh, nope, that one's on top of this one. Okay, phew, I think we got it. So I will erase here. You know what this means. This means that if when you're drawing this picture, this part is closer this way or farther up that way, you could have different results. So we really have to think about this. So higher up is farther away, lower down, closer to us. I'm saying it over and over again because I'm a teacher by nature. I just can't help myself. Repetition is how we learn. Okay, so this one's lower down than that, on top of that one. We're good now. Okay. Next, we need to make the river or it's a creek really. You know, the difference between a creek and a river is how long it is, not how far apart it is. So who knows? This could possibly be a river, even though it's little, but I think it's a creek. So we need that bank to turn to create that this river or creek is going in that direction. So on this last little tree back here, we're going to put a line going this way. And then we need our bank of grassy goodness kind of coming down towards this tip so that it does that. Okay. And now the top back in the back of this little hill is just going to go straight across. So you may be as high as your midpoint. You may not be as high as your midpoint. It doesn't really matter. But I want to be about an inch high over this back line there. So that's about an inch high. And then I'm just going to continue by not drawing on anything back there. So again, over top of things. Tricky, tricky, tricky. And it doesn't have to be perfectly straight. You can see I took a little bit of a curve there. All our land is drawn, and now to put some little tiny trees back there. So back in that space, we want to show that there's some trees kind of on this bank and that things are going off in the distance. So the things that we can see up close have details or lines on that we can see clearly. And things that are far away are going to be blurry. So that's called atmospheric perspective. Atmospheric perspective means like hazy. When you think of like colors, and like that's why there's purple mountains in the distance, even though we all know that mountains are not purple, is from the haze of looking through all the air that's between here and there. And just things that are farther away are just gonna be blurrier. So it's like nobody can see better than 2010, right? Things farther away, you just can't see all the details. So it just kind of blurs together. And then as artists, we can magnify that a bit and do even more blur for things that we don't want in focus. And then the things closer we do put in focus. So think about some of our smartphones have a portrait feature to our cameras. And so then when you're taking a portrait of someone, it's like it focuses in on their lovely faces and everything back, it ends up being blurry and it makes a beautiful portrait. So we're kind of doing that with our artistic skills too. So back here, our trees that we're going to have in focus will be skinnier and not too many of them. So they're basically on the back row, but on the front row of the back row. So they're going to be right here. So we're going to put some skinny trees and they will be behind everything. So skinny tree going behind here. That's one skinny tree. And keep in mind that two lines will make a tree. Boy, that got complicated right there. Whew. All right, and then, so that was one tree. This is two skinny trees. And then we'll put another skinny tree going behind here. And so he's gonna show it back there. Phew. And no more over there, that's crowded enough. And we could put one more right in here because that seems like a little wider, so. Skinny tree back behind that. So notice everything is behind back there. That's enough for the skinny trees. And I don't know if I got mine skinny enough, so I might erase and make them skinnier. Let me take a look at it and see. I might be sorry that I did this, but those last few trees that I drew, it was like I wasn't listening to myself when I told you all they had to be skinnier back there. They still need to be as tall as the tape, but they need to be skinnier. So rather than erase, I just made sure I did two more lines next to them. So now I have twice as many trees as I showed you how to draw, because if I added lines next to them, that made them super skinny and super close together. So you decide. You can have a bazillion trees like me back there in this one, or you can copy my original when you draw those trees back there and have fewer. So you've got two choices on how to approach this. I'm happy with this. I'm going to go with it. It's an experiment. We can find out which one we like better. And so next, we're going to trace with our black Sharpie marker. Okay, I think I got everything. Now when I trace, because we're thinking people, sometimes I make things a little bit different than how I drew them originally. Sometimes it's just because my hand doesn't do what my brain is telling it to, and it's like, okay, we'll just go with it because it's permanent marker. Other times it's because I'm like, oh, I actually think I would like that tree to be a bit skinnier there, or I think I would like that tree to be a bit wider there. So if you notice, like for instance, this tree, I kind of narrowed it a bit when I went up. So there's an extra pencil line there. It's not because I forgot to trace that, it's because I gave it a new line. And so there's pencil parts. So now it is time to take our eraser and erase the whole thing and get all of those pencil lines out of there. Let's do it. That looks clean and nice and great. And when I was erasing, my tape came loose in this corner. So I'm not just gonna like press that back down, because our last step today is going to be putting the violet watercolor dye on there. And so I'm gonna remove that part of it and put a new piece of tape there, because I want that protection from the purple ink on the corner. I think part of why that happened is my skin is dry and I put some lotion on before I put the tape on, and so I think I had a fingerprint of lotion there that made it not so sticky. We are ready to begin coloring this with the oil pastels. So you've heard the phrase, you can't see the forest for the trees. In our case, we can't see the trees for the forest. So we want to be able to find our trees, and the trick for that is to start at the bottom. And we're going to use gray to help us. The reason I chose a birch tree or a silver birch aspen kind of tree is number one, so we can use that cool colorless extender crayon that we haven't used yet. But number two, I really enjoy the lines that they have in there. So we're going to take our gray oil pastel, the gray one, and we're going to start at the bottom. So find one of your trees at the bottom. This one I'm coming to first. And in the middle of the tree, we're going to put lines like a ladder on there. And so if you start at the bottom, you won't get lost at the top. So you just kind of work your way up with these ladder lines in the middle. So we know that's a tree. And then this one. So we'll just do that on all of them, starting at the bottom. It doesn't have to go all the way across, because you don't want your tree having like train tracks. Train tracks meaning that the line comes out the two sides, right? So instead, you want it just in the middle, working your way up. All right, so then our next set of trees would be these ones. This is the best way I know to keep you from accidentally drawing ladder lines in the sky instead of on your tree. So always start at the bottom. Don't be like, oh, I'll just start at the top, because you might end up in between your trees instead of on your trees. So start at the bottom and work your way up with those gray lines. And we'll do that on all of them. And this will take a while because we have a whole forest of trees. But start at the bottom and then work your way up. Remember, this tree was twins. So the one right next to it, we have this one, this one, this one, this one, one. Oh, remember this one goes off the page. So we've got that one. And then we're gonna find these trees in the middle here. So middle trees. Oh my, is it hard to get in there? Okay, I have regrets now that I made them that tiny. So hopefully you watched the video all the way through before you got to this step of like, so that you know, and you will be better prepared than I was. Oh my goodness, yep. Okay. Oh, where's the trees down there? Okay, tree. Ooh, okay, this is gonna take a while. All right, so I do want us to make the gray lines go all the way to the top, but it's important to find your trees at the bottom. So I just found them all, and now I'm gonna return and make them go all the way to the top. Is anybody lost in the forest yet? Okay, I think I got them all. At this point, we have to resist the urge to be like, oh, I forgot to put a line on my tree there, because then we'll end up with lines in our sky again. So remember, always start at the bottom and work your way up. And I think I've got them all. Oh, I need one right there. On my example, I use the brown for those places where the dirt gets washed out every time there's a big rain and the creek fills up higher and washes through, and so not much can grow there, and so it's open dirt. But I'm thinking of using maybe the orange for my dirt, maybe orange and brown together instead of just by itself. So I'm gonna do that first, and then at the end you can look at the two pictures and decide which one you like best. The other thing I've done there is I have impressed with all my might when I did the orange. I used a medium pressure so that there are little spaces of the paper kind of showing through. And I think I'm gonna leave it just like that so that the purple watercolor dye can play around in those gaps in that orange and then read kind of like brown. So think Seurat, where he used colored dots next to each other to create the additional color. So he would use one color plus another color, and looking at it from a distance would create a third color while you're looking at it. So I don't know if it'll work. We're gonna find out. The next color is yellow, and we were gonna use firm pressure. We wanna have good enough pressure that you don't really see those little dots on the page, and I can see that there's a little green on my yellow from last time. I'm not worried about that because it's gonna be on the forest floor anyway, so I'm gonna press pretty hard. And I'm not gonna go on my black Sharpie line. I wanna be next to it instead of on it. So imagine the light kind of shining through the canopy and some spring grass, some early spring grass that isn't super green yet. So we've got the glow of the sun and some grass that maybe isn't quite getting enough chlorophyll going on here. There's also gonna be some yellow in the sky. So when we look at our forest, like from here to here, well, that'll be like the depths of our forest. I would like for you to think about it in thirds. And so like mark it off. So 1, 2, 3 spaces, thirds. And the top third of the forest that does not have gray lines on it, which means it's not a tree, gets to have straight up yellow with good pressure on it. So we're gonna go in between the trees and come down that far with the yellow. Can you see why it was important to put those gray lines on first? That makes this step much easier. Next is yellow-green. It just looks like a light green in your box, but it's called yellow-green, and that will be next. And so we're gonna finish out these little banks of spring grass. And you're using firm pressure, and you can overlap slightly onto the yellow when you do it. And I'm trying not to go on my black Sharpie line still. also going to use a little bit of this light green in the top. So we're not thinking about our thirds yet so much. So we're going to go up to our yellow and we're going to put a little light green on the yellow, but not all the way up. So maybe like half of that. So we've got a little light green showing up on top of it like a layer. And then maybe a little bit down into the neck section, slightly down. So I'm not going all the way down to this mark, just a little bit is happening. And not on the trees, this is happening between the trees, which is pretty tricky. Okay, next we're gonna use the green one. It's the darker of the two greens. If you have the 16 color box, if you have the 25 color box, just the one that's called green. And now we're gonna use very gentle pressure, very gently. So it's in between the trees, super gentle. I can see a lot of white spaces shining through that. Okay, because I want to be able to see, and it's the full 2/3 of the way down. So I'm going in between the trees all the way down to that next bank. It's really important that you don't press hard or color darkly with this color. We really want a space for that purple to show up later. So if we press really hard, the purple won't get a chance to show up in there. See those lovely spaces? Blue is next. We're gonna get that creek in. When we put our creek in, we definitely want to have some opportunity for the violet watercolor to show up there too. And if you look at your glass of water, anything with water, water always lies flat. No matter what's going on and the rest of it, the water will lie flat unless there's a big wind or something. So we want more of an appearance of a peaceful creek. So you're gonna make it lie flat. And the way you do that is to use horizontal lines to color it in. So you're gonna start at the back and continuously put horizontal line right next to each other all the way. And I'm using fairly good pressure for my horizontal lines, and I'm rotating my crayon pot in my hand because if I wear off kind of the pointy edge that I'm using, if I rotate, there'll be a new pointy edge to help me get that nice line look. So horizontal, horizontal until I get all the way to the bottom. All right, so it looks like that. You can see those nice spaces. Purple will go there. And since I enjoy some of the light color about that, let's switch over to our white crayon. This is the one that says white. This is not the colorless extender. And so when I use white, I'm gonna go kind of in the center of my stream and do some more floating platforms or horizontals. They do not extend all the way to the edges. And that creates those light reflected on there. So let me make that closer so you can see. So it looks like light blue when that happens, and it's just in the center of it, okay? And that will stand out more when we put the violet on. The other thing that we're gonna do with our blue, so I probably shouldn't have put it away just yet, we have these lovely birch trees. Now, at this point, you can be like, okay, I like them with just gray, and that is fine with me. But you might be like, hey, birch trees can be exciting with colors too. And Miss Alayne has always taught us if there's a new color somewhere to like kind of play throughout the picture. So I'm gonna play throughout the picture. And this time I'm gonna be a little bit more random with my minus signs on my trees. So kind of skip some spaces. And I'm just using the regular blue one. And I'm gonna put those on. And maybe I won't do those super skinny ones in the back this time. If yours are not super skinny, you are welcome to do that, but I think I'm just going to stick with these big ones in the front. You could maybe do purple lines if you wanted. You could maybe do, if you have like a bigger color set than me and you have like a dark Prussian blue, you could do like some Prussian blue lines. I'm going to keep it simple with this. But I think I'm going to try out a little bit of orange because I'm excited I use orange here instead of brown. So I'm going to get orange involved again. And yes, we will compare and contrast and see which one we like better. And so first off, I'm going to put a little orange way in this guy at the top up here. How fun is that? Okay, so it maybe just went from spring to fall, but oh well. I like it. It could just be a sunrise. Okay, and then I'm going to put a few random minus signs of orange on my trees. We'll see how this works. Okay, all right. Here's our close-up. It may look like we're done with this, but now is when we get to use our colorless extender blender. All right. This one. You want to get this one out? So this is the same delightful, waxy, whatever crayons are made out of. Oiliness. They're called oil pastels, so they're made of oil. Without any of the pigment or dyes or colors. So it just has no color whatsoever. So if I draw over here on this like gray thing, it feels smooth and slippery and waxy, but no color shows up. If I drew with the white one, there would be a white line. So just don't get them confused because they look the same like this, but they're different like this. And what we do next, you're not really going to be able to see a lot of what's happening. So you're just going to have to trust that it's happening and not lose your way. But part of it is what's going to really help us is these gray, orange, and blue lines are really going to help us know that we're doing what we're supposed to be doing, because we drew the lines going left to right, and we're going to use our colorless extender going up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down, and see how those colors get nice and smeary and blend all in that space. And this might even break by the time I'm done. I'm gonna like really use extreme pressure. So all you bodybuilders, you're gonna demolish this, I'm sure, while you're doing this. So you really smush it and see how that looks. All right, let's do that to all of our trees. This is really important. If you miss even one tree, you're gonna have a purple tree, okay? So you gotta get all of them. So don't forget this half of a tree over here. Blend, 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 blend. I hope I got them all. It's very tricky. Now I'm going to use the violet watercolor and part of a sponge to put purple watercolor on the whole page. So I'm gonna just open it up, put a little blob of purple in the middle, and spread it all around. Everywhere, everywhere. This way, that way, go in multiple directions. Kind of feels like I'm putting grape jelly over everything. I'm gonna find out in a minute if I missed any place. Next, I'm gonna take a dry paper towel and kind of wipe off any residual. Phew, looks like I got all of my trees with that. invisible color. Yay! Oh, this looks great. Right, and now let's remove the tape by pulling low and at a right angle away. Oh yeah, that's where that tape was broken. So we're gonna pull low and at a right angle away from the picture. Ta-da! Okay, let's compare and contrast our first and last picture. So this is the one that I had drawn in preparation for us to learn from, and this is the one I just did. So what I notice is that I went a little higher with the green and the purple. I did that on purpose because I think I want that to look like a density of the forest. So I think I like that a little bit better than this one. And I experimented with the orange with the purple instead of the brown. And I think I like that better too. One of the things I like better about this one is my Sharpie marker was a bit newer and pointier. And so I have thinner Sharpie lines on this one than on this one. So I kind of like the thin lines, but I do like the bold lines over here too. So they are both favorites. And I will say probably having less trees is a little bit better than the more trees in the background for those skinny ones. So I remember thinking that that could get pretty tricky. All in all, I'm happy with both of them. And so I hope that you enjoyed this project and that you enjoy the outcome of your lesson as well. Oh, look how our water is a bit different. I don't know, I think wider white might be nicer on this than narrower. Okay, make sure you pick your favorite and you head in that direction because now you will know how to do it. Thank you very much, and I hope to see you soon in one of our Arlington Heights meetups for the library. Thank you, bye.